I want something that where I can still have my own business, still be creative in my own business, but have a team of people that are going to really help me grow my business. So I said that franchising thing was just one heck of a lot of fun, really easy to step into. I got to get back into that.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are enjoying this show and getting some great value for your investing goals, make sure you leave some honest feedback with a rating and review. It helps us and it helps other listeners find this show for their own investing goals. And listen, if you haven't done so, or this is your first time listening, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Greg Mohr. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Greg Mohr is known as the franchise maven. He's a former corporate climber turned consultant who has achieved financial freedom through franchising. Now he helps ambitious entrepreneurs find a thriving franchise fit or flip their current business into one. Let's welcome to the show, Greg Mohr.
John, thank you very much for having me today, sir. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Greg. I went over your bio at a very, very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Well, I started out my franchising career back when I was actually 16. So, we all had to get a job somewhere, and most of us back then in the day went to fast food, and mine just happened to be Taco Bell. And I moved my way up in the Taco Bell world, and it just so happened I was working for a Master Franchisor. She owned about 50 Taco Bells throughout the Sacramento, California area, Woodland, California, where I lived. And I helped her build her teams in various restaurants throughout the Sacramento, California area. It was a blast, business in a box, exact things to do, processes, procedures were all in place. Loved it. So 30 years later. Yeah, it was a long time. And I'm old. I'm ancient. So 30 years later, after going through the corporate world, I decided it was time, or the manager decided it was time for me to get out of the corporate world. I had, in the meantime, got a degree in electrical engineering, physics, and then a master's degree in business. Read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's when I about ruined my corporate career. I had actually owned a dry cleaners with another engineer friend of mine. Myself, we owned some storage units, and then I owned some real estate property as well, real estate investment, rental properties. I got out of the corporate world, so did my friend. I sold off the portion of the private business, the private dry cleaners and storage units to him. And I said, I got to get back to that franchising thing. That was a fun thing to do. Robert Kiyosaki says, you got to go out there and you got to go work for yourself, get out of the W-2 employee thing. So I went out and searched for franchises, and I ended up getting a hold of a franchise consultant. Didn't know they existed at the time. Who knew? But it was great. He got me into an outstanding franchise, a Schooley Mitchell telecommunications consulting franchise. I did that for a while. That was a whole lot of fun. But what I was just thinking, as I was working with that consultant, I said, I like what you do. You get to work from home, so you're not spending any time on the road at all. So all of your time is very valuable. So you can spend your whole time talking with wonderful people throughout the United States, actually throughout the world. So I went back to him and said, teach me to do that. I like that. That way I could work from home, work with all sorts of wonderful people. That was about 10 years ago, and I haven't looked back since.
I love it, man. You talked about starting out young, man, at 16, working at the Taco Bell franchise and just kind of climbing up the corporate ranks there, going to college, kind of walking away, getting in regular corporate America, getting into electrical engineering and deciding to walk away. But you had kind of your businesses on the side, right? You mentioned a dry cleaner. You talked about having a storage unit, some rental units, and you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that kind of made you say, okay, you know what, it's time to make this transition, which I think many of our listeners have had a similar, epiphany, right? Reading that book. So such a big, powerful moment where you took that shift. But for you, you realized, hey, I want to get back into franchises. Why franchises as opposed to maybe scaling what you were doing with the dry cleaners and the, you didn't say laundromats, but dry cleaners, storage units, and the rental portfolio? Why not focus on that side as opposed to the franchises?
Great question, John. A lot of my people ask the same thing, why franchising versus a private business? I found that running that dry cleaners, running the storage units, was a lot of fun, but it was a real big challenge because when we were thinking about, where do we get the new equipment from that we need? Where do we dispose of the chemicals? Where do we get good chemicals? Who are the good suppliers? All those questions we had to find answers for ourselves on that. It's a big challenge. You get to run the business any way you want to. Added plus, excellent plus. You don't have to pay any royalties, no franchise fee. So it was great. But you kind of had to figure out everything yourself on that one. So what I got out of that, I decided, I like that franchising thing because everything was just in place right there. They all had, the marketing was in place, advertising. We were where to find, clients, where to find employees, how to look for them, what to say, business in a box. And I said, I don't have the latest, greatest idea on what to do. And that privately owned stuff, that was a bit challenging. I want something where I can still have my own business, still be creative in my own business, but have a team of people that are going to really help me grow my business. So I said, that franchising was just one heck of a lot of fun, really easy to step into. I got to get back into that.
And were you reflecting back on your franchise experience at Taco Bell, or was there another franchise that I may have missed in that story?
No, that was actually getting out of the corporate world. So I was actually a restaurant manager as well for 15 years, and then a microelectronic circuit engineer for 15 years. And doing all that, and then back into that, I just reflected back in my Taco Bell days where I had a whole lot of fun. And that was a very easy operation to go into and run because of the fact that they had everything, all the processes, procedures in place. And I said, I want to do that again because, that was just a really enjoyable experience. So that's really what got me back into thinking, let's do that again and let's do it for myself this time rather than working for a master franchisor.
I like that. And I think it's really important to have this conversation because many of our listeners are looking to scale, right? Yeah. Part of the reason you're listening to this podcast is you're not 100% happy with where you're at today, right? You're trying to figure out how to get from where you're at today to where you want to be. And maybe that's juggling a demanding career and trying to build up this side portfolio, the side business, your rental portfolio. You recognize you need to scale, but it's challenging when you only have so many hours in the day. And being a real estate investor certainly takes up a lot of time, energy, and you got to educate yourself. So there are a couple different pathways, right? And one way we always push people to at least consider is investing passively, right? Work with someone else who has done this. But if you come from corporate America and you're used to systems and processes and procedures and teams and structure, franchises could be a really good opportunity to think about because you essentially have a lot of that infrastructure in place and you don't have to solve it all yourself. And that's kind of what you alluded to when you were running your private business with the dry cleaners and your rental portfolio is when there was a challenge, you had to figure it out for yourself, right? I mean, you could Google it, but either way, you still had to sit there and figure it out as opposed to being in a franchise model where they're giving you kind of the best practices that are tried and true over years and years and across multiple locations. So they have a pretty good sense of what works best. Talk to me more about kind of that juxtaposition of running your own private business versus owning a franchise.
So private business, John, you get to do everything yourself. You get to keep all the money. So that's the first thing that people ask me, is it worth the money? You pay a one-time franchise fee on that. That's just to get you all the knowledge you need, everything, all the training to get you running that business. But then you've got royalties. The ongoing royalties are generally between 5 and 10% on that. So then you've got to weigh out, doing it myself, not paying royalties, or having a team of people that are going to help me grow that business and pay the royalties themselves. And there's going to be a few restrictions with the franchise that you get into on that. Most of it's going to be a territory restriction. So, your own private business, you can take it anywhere. You can get clients from anywhere you want to. You can do anything you want with that business. Franchise, generally speaking, you're going to have a prescribed territory, so you can't go outside that territory for the most part. People wonder if they can be creative in a franchise, and you can. You can be very creative in a franchise as well. They've got all the systems. They've done it before, which is why you're paying that franchise fee and why you're paying those royalties, because they've done it all before. And they said, just do this, and your chances of success are that much greater. Now, with any business, you've got to have a little bit of risk tolerance as it is, because it's a business and there's some risk involved, but you reduce the risk when you get into a franchise because, John, as you said, they've done it before. They've done it at multiple locations. They've done it, for the most part, they've done it for many years, unless you get into an emerging franchise. But you will have some guidelines that you got to follow. So you still have to be a self-starter, just like if you're to do your own business, but you have to be coachable and you have to be able to follow processes and systems on that. So depending on your point of view, that could be good, that could be not so good. If you like just doing things yourself, coming up with your own ideas, going in whatever direction you want to, by all means, go with the privately owned business on that. Franchising is a good option to look into if you want something that really can get you to where you want to be, at least 2 to 3 years quicker than if you were to do it yourself.
Yeah, I love it, man. Great tips. And I think it's important for people to weigh those options, right? One, you have to want to run a business. It's still running a business either way you look at it, right? One is with the infrastructure and the experience of an existing franchise, the brand of a franchise that exists versus launching a new business from scratch and having to create a lot of those standard operating procedures and figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and obviously all the challenges that come from launching a brand new business. Um, you're a franchise consultant. You mentioned that you started off with kind of your telecommunications consulting franchise, and then you had a consultant that you were working with, realized you really enjoy what that person was doing, and that's what you've been doing ever since then. Um, when you started off with that first franchise, like what made you pick telecommunications consulting? Like that one, I'm not 100% sure what that means, but two, what was your process, right? I mean, I heard you come from the restaurant world. Had the electrical kind of background there. So, what made you decide to go into telecommunications?
Now, there are a couple of reasons for that one. One, I looked at a few different franchises on there. So the franchise consultant, as franchise consultants, we come up with a few different ideas for you, 5 or 10 different ones on that. But what I was looking for is I was looking for something where I could work from home. So no brick and mortar, no office, anything like that. So I wanted to work from home and set my own schedules, come and go as I please. So that one fit that criteria so that I could work from home. Then what I do is I go out and visit with those business owners on that. So cost savings. Just think of it as cost savings is basically what it was. So when Schooley Mitchell first started out, we worked in phone services. So when you think of phone service, don't think of, the private citizen with their cell phone. Think of like when you go into a car dealership, for instance, they have phones all over the place. They have a huge phone system on there. So we helped the businesses like that have huge phone systems save money on their telecommunications, on their phone bills, basically on that. Now, Schooley Mitchell has gone out into transportation, shipping, all sorts of different things where they can do cost savings on that. But basically what we did was a cost saving things, and then we'd find them the same service or better for a lower price, and then we'd share in the savings on that. So I got to develop a relationship with these people because we'd share in the savings over a 3-year period, and I would be their phone guy, basically, is what it came down to on that. So I like that because now you've got that recurring income that's coming in. Once you develop the first relationship, you've got that recurring income with those folks over a 3-year period. So work from home, got the nice recurring income. And after working as a restaurant manager for 15 years, I decided that at the time, I really didn't want any more employees. Personal decision, but I had a lot of employees when I was a restaurant manager. So I really wanted to do things just on myself. So people ask, if you get into a franchise, are you buying a job? Well, I basically did. But no, in general, you don't. You have employees, you have people working for you, and you don't want that business to revolve around you. That's the general idea of any business. You don't want it to revolve around you. But the Schooley Mitchell one, it really fit mine. I knew that I could, at some point in time, if I wanted to, start hiring people and start bringing in others to help me out as well as I do, as well as only working for myself. So I had a couple of options on that one. So that also fit into my criteria on that. And it was a low-cost franchise. I didn't want to go into too much of a cost on that. So brick and mortar is a little bit more of a cost. So I got to work from home, set my own schedule, no employees, low-cost business, and still make some really good money on that, which was basically my criteria at the time.
I love it. I appreciate you sharing that, right? You talked about your criteria, wanted to work from home, no employees, schedule flexibility. You also wanted a franchise that was going to be low cost, not a, high, very expensive franchise to get started. And I think it's really helpful. You mentioned your franchise consultant kind of helped give you some options there. What exactly is a franchise consultant, and like what role do they play in helping someone identify the right franchise for them?
Great question, John. So what do we do? First off, what everybody asks, the first thing everybody wants to know, how much do you charge? We don't charge anything. We're free. So we work with, for the most part, most of us, every consultant's a little bit different, but we belong to organizations, franchise broker, franchise consultant organizations that go out and get contracts with franchisors that if you decide to invest in one of the franchises I introduce you to, they pay us a referral fee. So I work with a little over 500 different franchises out there. So many to choose from in many different industries. So people, John, come to me and they say, I've loved the franchising thing, always wanted to get into my own business. Just like me, they didn't have the latest, greatest idea. They wanted something they could just step right into, but they don't know where to start. They don't know where to go. So that's why you come to someone like us, a franchise consultant, not knowing where to start, not knowing how to investigate a franchise, what to look for on those, how to find the ones that are that fit your needs, and then also what franchises are available in your area. So there's many different factors in that. So we're looking at, what kind of a time commitment do you want? What kind of investment are you looking for? What's your background? So that's a very important thing to look at is what's your background as far as what do you bring to the table? So where have you been? That experience that you've had in your life are just absolutely golden. And a lot of franchisors are looking for people just like you. And there's some franchises that aren't looking for people just like you. And that's where I come in and I can weed out the ones that aren't looking for people like you and the ones that you aren't looking for. And then I can come up with many different ideas for things that do fit your needs. So where have you been? Where are you at now? How much time do you want to put in the franchise? What are you comfortable investing in a franchise? And then where do you want to be? What do you see that franchise doing for you 5-10 years down the road? That's where we can come up with a plan as far as, which franchises are a good fit. I'm kind of like Match.com and Realtor.com all rolled into one, because it's got to be a good matchup money-wise, but then it's got to be a good matchup personality-wise as well, making certain we put you into the kind of culture that you want. So that's what we do as franchise consultants. We get to know you as well as we can. On there, I have a questionnaire that I have people fill out. We go through a couple of phone calls. You ask me lots of questions. I ask you lots of questions. And then I really get a feel for where do you want to be. And that way, using all that information, I can come up with 5 or 10 different opportunities for you. And that's just the start. Once we've got those, now what we're going to do is narrow them down to 2 or 3. And then I'm going to introduce you to the franchises. And then we're going to go through the investigation process together. So you get the information you need to make an informed decision. Along the way, I have CPAs. I have funding people, so everybody needs to fund their franchise. My investors, especially my real estate people, love using other people's money for that, as long as the investment services the debt, they're good to go. I have franchise attorneys along the way as well. They'll let you know what you're getting yourself into and making sure you're okay with that. So we've got all that. I've got a list of questions for franchisors, for the franchisees that you can use as well. So we're going to make certain that you've got a really good understanding as we go through the investigation process together of that franchise, how it works, how it operates, how they're going to help you grow, and really get to know the whole team over there to make certain that it's a good cultural fit as well.
Greg, I love that answer. You listed out one of the main things someone investigating this space needs to ask themselves is, one, where have they been? Where are they at now? Where do they want to go? And then how much are they looking to invest? And also probably how much time are they looking to invest into this new venture, right? And that's going to help to shape up which opportunities make the most sense. And from there, you start to explore specific, maybe industries or companies and opportunities and go from there, which I think is really great. You mentioned that this is no cost, right? You get paid really on the franchisor side. So this is a great opportunity to explore this, start with that questionnaire, dig a little deeper and really reflect on what kind of opportunities you're looking for. If this is a path that makes sense, what are some of the common questions you get from those who are looking to become franchise owners?
Oh, the normal one is, how much can I make on that? The Federal Trade Commission has certain rules and restrictions, so I really can't tell you how much you can make because I'd get into trouble if I did that. We will find out along the way. We will talk with, or you'll talk with franchisees and you'll find out how much they make because it has been in your spot at one point in time and they all got to know what can I make because it's got to be worthwhile. So how much can steer you that I know we're making some really good money if that's all you're interested in, which is some people, that's all they're interested in to begin with. As it turns, as it goes further, it's not always on that. Am I buying a job on that one? So no, most franchises in there. Now, if you want to buy a job, just like what I did when I got mine, I can find you ones where you can be the person that does all the work if you don't want any employees like I do, but like I didn't at the time. But for the most part, what the franchisor is looking for is they're looking for an executive to grow that business. They want you to work on the business, not in the business itself. Because if you're working in the business, you're not taking the time to grow the business. And that's what most franchises want for you to grow that business. Let other people do the work. You build the business up. So they asked me, I'm buying a job. So no, not unless you want to. On that, can I be creative? Yes, you can still be creative. It is still your franchise. You have guidelines to go in. I've had people that tried to be a little too creative just out of the gate on that. It didn't always work out on that one. So they said, you're not doing this. How come you're not doing this? Can I go do this? And they're like, franchises are like, hey, we've done that 100 times, 100 different cities for 20 years. We never even thought of that. If you want to try it, go for it. It didn't always work out too well. So they went back to the original model. So if you want to be creative, great, you can. Generally speaking, you want to get to know that franchise for a little bit, 1 or 2 years, and then start being creative on that one. On that. So that's another one. Are the royalties worth it? It's a question. That's a good question to ask. Those kind of questions, what you want to do is ask the franchisees who have been in the franchise for 10, 20 years. Why are they still there? What are they still getting from the franchise for those royalties? To begin with, it's a pretty easy question to answer because you got, they're going to help you build that business up. And then, of course, the other big one is, how can I fund my franchise? Do I just go down to my local bank? Generally speaking, no. We have people that fund franchises all the time. Franchises are easy to fund because of that proven track record on that. They know who they want in their franchise system. So we like to see success rates in franchises of 85, 90% or better. And you will see that in the franchise disclosure document, number of people that are started the franchise and are still running it, and then a number of people who did start and are no longer running it. So it's easy math to get that. So that's why funding franchises is pretty easy. As long as your credit is fairly decent, 650, 700 or more, then the franchise part is pretty simple. And we have people that do it all the time.
I love it, man. You gave us 5 questions that investors love to ask, or I should say franchise owners or prospective franchise owners like to ask. One, how much can I make? Which is not an easy question to answer right away, but you can get to that answer eventually. Second is, hey, am I buying a job? Can you be creative? Are the royalties worth it? And then finally, how do you fund this franchise? So great questions. You answered all of them, and there's obviously some solutions there to work through. For folks who want to learn more, they can go to franchisemaven.com. That's your website. I know you also host a podcast where you share more information about this. This is the Franchise Maven podcast. So be sure to check out that podcast wherever you're listening to this one at. Greg, when you are, looking at industries, especially for our folks who come from real estate, how we've got this real estate mindset. We kind of understand basic, profit and loss statements. We understand net operating income and residents. Are there certain franchise categories or industries that make more sense for those coming from the real estate industry as opposed to others?
Absolutely, John. I have lots of real estate people that love coming in there. The first thing I go over with them is you want to do something that's related to your real estate business, or you want to totally diversify and get out of into some other industry. Most of them go for things that they're used to. So what are they used to? Electrical, plumbing, HVAC, renovation, restoration, and then yard service, roofing, kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling. Great service business, especially when you look into electrical, plumbing, HVAC, restoration services, those are what we call the essential services. So it doesn't really matter what the economy is doing out there. If something's broke, it's got to be fixed. It's got to be fixed now. If your AC goes out, if your heater goes out, in most areas, you don't have a 70, 75 degree pleasant temperature all year round. So most of the time, you're going to get that fixed no matter what, pretty darn quick on that. So those are the essential services. My real estate people just love those sort of things, and they've dealt with those people that are in that industry, so they're already kind of familiar with those sort of things. Renovations, restorations, that sort of services. So they're really comfortable walking into that role.
Yeah, and I love that because you're right. Like, there's a lot of overlap there. These are the things that you're somewhat familiar with anyway, just from being in the real estate space. Some folks may not have that technical background, right? They're investors, so they're not necessarily the electrical people themselves, or they're not fixing HVAC. They're calling these companies to come service their properties. If you don't have that technical background, are these still industries they should look for, or do you really need to have the technical know-how if you're going to go down one of these kind of franchise lanes?
John, it goes back to what I was referring to before. When franchises want you to work on the business, they want you to be the executive manager on that. They do not want you doing the work. You hire other people to do it. And for the most part, I think in just about every state, I can't say for certain because I don't know, but most of the states that I've worked with, if you're going to go into electrical or plumbing, you're going to hire a master electrician or you're going to hire a master plumber. They're going to be the ones that are going to deal with all the other people that are doing the work in there. They don't want you doing it. Most franchises, you don't necessarily have to have the technical experience to do it. They're really looking for business people who are looking to grow a business and are enthusiastic about the franchise that they get into on that. They can teach you everything. Restoration is interesting. For one, water damage, fire damage, smoke damage. They will actually flood a room. You'll go into training, they'll flood a room, and you'll actually clean the room out and get it all dry. That will probably be the first and last time you ever do that, because you'll have a team doing it, but they will show you how to do it. Now, I don't think my electrical franchises and my plumbing franchises are going to have you go in there and fix any electrical plumbing, but they'll kind of get you familiar with the industry itself. As long as you're enthusiastic about it, you're going to be hiring other people to do the work. So no, you don't have to have any specific knowledge in that. And my real estate people don't. They've dealt with the folks. They are familiar with the industry, and they're enthusiastic about it, and because they spend a lot of money doing it, usually getting these things done, and that's what the franchises are really looking for: that enthusiasm about the business or the industry itself, but not the technical knowledge to actually do the work.
There you go. So if you're one of those investors who is astounded at how much HVAC and electrical is costing you now, you can launch your own franchise, right? Get on the other side of that, and now you're the one who is making the money, taking care of not just your property but other properties. So, hey, if you enjoyed our conversation so far, make sure you go and follow Greg at Franchise Maven on the podcast. We'll make sure we go and link to his website as well, franchisemaven.com. Right now, we're going to transition to our round of insights. Greg, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Oh, I got laid off. That's why I that's why I got into franchising on that one. The manager finally realized what I had probably realized a while ago: is my heart just wasn't in the business anymore as an electrical engineer. I was going through the motions, but not really performing as well as I could have. So, bye-bye, Greg. Best thing that ever happened to me. It was amazing. Set me on my career now, and a lot more fun, a lot more money, and a lot more time.
Give me the digital or, let me say it again. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for our listeners.
Digital or mobile resource on that. We're talking about podcasting, and you mentioned my podcast, so I guess a digital resource would be Podcast AI. If you want to do your own podcast and you don't want to spend a lot of money doing it, that's a good AI resource for an inexpensive podcast up and running quickly.
All right, love it. Podcast AI. All right, give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Oh. Retirement Money Secrets. Steve Stone guy. So with all the money that I made, I had to do something with it. And I'm very risk averse, even though I got into franchising on that. But he goes over CEFs on that to do that. But as far as the business side goes, and when you want to be a business person, you're always selling things. On that, Zig Ziglar would be a good one. I like his thing that is sales is something you do with somebody, not to somebody. And the more people you help get what they want, the more you will get what you want. That kind of philosophy is essential with any of us that's out there doing business, because we're selling. Even if you have kids, you're selling. You're selling the vegetables to get them to go. You're always doing some sort of selling, and I really like Zig Ziglar's attitude towards it.
Love it. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I have a set procedure or a set schedule that I do every day during certain hours. On that, I've got it down so much that during this time period, this is the one I'm going to do, and then I'm going to go take a walk out there, relax out in the woods, take a walk with the dogs. So we leave at 10:30. So in about 20 minutes from now, my dogs are going to wake up, no matter what I'm doing, and they're going to say it's time to go for a walk, because they know exactly at 10:30 every day, after working in the morning, I need to go out, clear my mind, relax. They know it's time. They've got my schedule down, so I have a certain schedule that I keep. It was tough, going from. For a lot of you entrepreneurs out there as well, it may be tough going from a set schedule when you're going into work every day. If you're going to do it from home, I had a little bit of a struggle actually getting into my business to begin with, because there's so many distractions at home if you work from home on that. So now I put a set schedule in place. This is what I'm going to do between these hours.
I love it. All right, give me your number one insight for succeeding as a franchise investor, or franchise owner, I should say.
The ability to be mentored. Always have a mentor. Always get mentors. That's the biggest thing there. There's going to be people that know more than you do all the time. That is the biggest thing to get into when you get into any kind of a business on that, which is what I didn't do too much as a dry cleaning owner, but I really like as a franchise owner, is that make sure you have mentors. When you talk to the other franchisees as you investigate the franchise, and if you decide to get into franchising, they're going to be your friends. And a lot of them are going to be your mentors as well, because everybody helps grow the business up. Because again, you're generally not interact or going into other people's territories. You're all independent, so you're not competing with each other. Having a mentor and somebody that knows more than you do is absolutely essential in helping your business grow.
I appreciate that. All right, you're in Missouri. What city are you in again?
Licking, Licking.
Licking, Missouri. Give us your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Right here at home. There ain't nothing around me. I'm out in the middle of nowhere land. I got about 160 acres out here in the woods. So we actually don't go anywhere. We eat here. We grow everything ourselves out there. So if I don't have it, I want something to eat. I don't know if your listeners would like this or not, but I just go out there and slaughter it. The duck, goose, rabbit, chicken, quail, whatever.
There you go. Eat at home it is. Hey, Greg, you gave us a lot of great insights. You talked about your transition from corporate America to being a franchise owner, really starting from your time as a teen working at Taco Bell and just recognizing the systems and processes that were in place with that franchise. And that left a big impression on you. Fast forward, you launched your own franchise. From there, decided to become a consultant, helping other people, take advantage of the franchise opportunities that exist. You gave some great tips on how to get into the franchise space. One, recognizing that getting a franchise consultant is usually free. So you're typically paid from the franchisor, not paid from the franchise owner. So that's a great opportunity for you to go ahead and tap into someone who can help guide you through this process to learn more about yourself, what it is you're looking for, where you're at, where you've been, where you want to go, how much does it take, how much do you have to invest now, how much time do you have to invest in this, so you can find the right franchise that fits your goals. For those folks who are real estate or investors right now looking for something that's real estate adjacent, there are definitely industries that may make more sense, so keep that in mind. And then the last thing you gave us was kind of the top 5 questions, right? So how much can you make? Are you buying a job? Can you be creative? Are the royalties worth it? And how do you fund your franchise? So great tips and insights on all of those things. For our listeners who want to learn more, who want to reach out, go to his website, go to franchisemaven.com, and you can connect with Greg and his team there. Greg, thanks again for coming on Multifamily Insights and being a great guest. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.